Hey friends, and welcome to Heartful Beings, where we bring loving, grounded, and practical perspectives to living a heart-centered life with Janet Uribe and Malena Rodriguez.
This is the place where we will explore all things spiritual with an open heart while keeping our feet on the ground. We share our experiences, bring in special guests, and have open-hearted conversations about all things spiritual.
If you are new or open to expansion, spiritual principles, and universal truths, then we may be kindred spirits.
All we ask is that you take what resonates, nourish your soul, and just leave the rest behind.
Hey friends, thanks so much for finding us at Heartful Beings Podcast. My name is Janet Uribe, and this is my beautiful sister-in-law, who I'll allow to introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Malena Rodriguez.
All right. So Malena and I have been collaborating on this project for a long time coming. It's been approximately a year. And I function as an intuitive teacher, a mentor, and a mystic. I say mystic because I keep discovering new abilities within myself, like weekly or even monthly, that I can't really pinpoint. And I'm here to be of service to you with Malena. And Malena, oh my God, guys, Malena's amazing. You're going to learn so much about her. She blows me away every week when we meet, and which is why we became a podcast. Malena, please explain what you do.
Yeah. Well, very similar to Janet, kind of similar paths. I've been working with clients over the last couple of years as a soul coach and a medium. Medium is something I'm really stepping into right now. Like Janet said, it's really hard when you're doing this work to just pinpoint which abilities or what you kind of got going on when it's constantly in motion. It's constantly changing and new things are opening up every week. So it's been a really fun journey. And Janet and I have just been doing these meetings just to have somebody to talk to about our experiences. We've been collaborating on different projects, and we were like, well, we should just do a podcast. That's why we're here, to like share our meetings and like what we've been discovering with all of you guys.
Yeah. And so the whole purpose, guys, of Heartful Beings is we're really looking for ways to bring grounded, practical, and loving techniques, embodiments, perspectives, ways of being to spirituality. I think that a lot of us can relate to finding spirituality, dabbling with it, learning about it, seeking about it. Maybe you're completely new to it. Maybe you're a veteran, but I think that we have one commonality, is that we seek it to kind of ease the pain, ease the struggle, help the obstacle. But the thing is, it can almost become its own coping mechanism until we learn to embody it. So one of the reasons that Malena and I even started this podcast is we were realizing we were meeting weekly for our just like support sessions. And then we thought we'll do a platform eventually. And then we realized, holy shit, our conversations are amazing. Why didn't we record that?
I mean, we think they're pretty amazing.
Yeah, they are. And so why didn't we record it? We should be sharing it with people. You know how many people would get this? This was such an aha moment for me. So one of the coolest things that you'll probably witness between us is that we're literally living our lives live in front of you and sharing our discoveries, sharing our learnings, and also like being very authentic in whichever way that we can present it to you. Because the idea here, like the whole purpose of doing the work here, is to discover that self-actualization, is to discover your like expansion and really dig deep into who you are. So one of the things that I love, like when we work with Malena or when I work with Malena, is that if I come to her and there's a limitation, she'll call me out on it. And same thing, girl, right? Like we challenge each other. And then sometimes, like, I think like a couple of weeks ago, I had a huge breakthrough with you.
Yeah.
And it was actually longer than a couple of weeks. It was a couple months ago. And it was based in, what does it look like to bring the ability to rest into your life? And why are you
integrated in everything that you do. Yeah.
And so she brought me such a big, you were doing theta healing. Is that what it was?
Yeah. We were working primarily in that part of the healing on belief systems. And that's something that you will hear us talk a lot about, are these programmed belief systems that we get from society, family, just being a woman, just being a man, culturally, ancestrally, historically. I mean, it's like level upon level upon level. And so a lot of the work that I've been into recently is really getting into breaking down these belief systems and like figuring out what doesn't serve us anymore and what did we inherit that's not even our shit. Like, and it ends up being a lot of it. And that will cloud who we are. And so kind of when we did our little introduction about our abilities and kind of who we're stepping into, for me to get to this point, a lot of the work that I've done that Janet has been a witness to, which is also really important, I think, in the healing, is having someone to witness your journey, is breaking down all those belief systems and all of the fear and the anxiety, which is what this first episode is all about, new beginnings. So not just that it's our very first podcast episode, it's that we're also sharing the crazy transformation that both of us are going through right now, as we were preparing to even go, and record this session just like 20 minutes ago, when we were both like, whoa, both of us are feeling a little off. What's going on? What's coming up for us, which we'll get into in a second. But it really goes down to a lot of just belief systems, breaking that shit down and getting rid of it.
Yeah. And like, being in human form, guys, I feel like we all come with limitations. Like if you're already having a thought that's it's humanized. So we already have a certain level of limitation with the thought. So what does it look like to break that down? And so to give you a little bit of our background, by the way, so I am a mom. I am a business owner. I have been a business owner more than a couple times in my life. And each time I've kind of proven and ripped down, torn down my own belief systems around whether I could or couldn't do it. And somehow I keep proving that I can. And I'm actually, in terms of my new beginnings, I'm learning to step into, holy cow, Janet, you can do this. So the new beginnings, whether you're here like, what is this Heartful Beings thing? Oh, spirituality. What is that? It's your new beginning. And ultimately that new beginning is a constant evolution of continuously discovering who you are.
Yes.
With a grander depth, with a grander perspective, with a higher perspective. And when you pursue yourself that way, you start to learn so many things that you can't unlearn, that your new truths and your new discoveries and your new ownership of who you are is so fucking beautiful.
Yeah. You can't unsee it. You can't undo it. You can't unbelieve it, really.
No, which is so cool, because like Malena and I think we were both kind of like more agnostic. Maybe like, would you say you're a borderline atheist?
So it's funny. I'll just jump into a little bit of my story. Like, I always believed that there was higher beings, but then growing up, in the family that I grew up in, with a lot of Catholicism and a lot of religion, and the school I went to, a Catholic school, there was always something that I didn't quite believe in the realm of the religion, but I still had the foundation that I just knew there was other things out there. And even as a little girl, like, I just knew that spirits were around me. And now, with my learnings now and my healing and everything I've done up to this point, I realized that I worked really hard at tucking that away because I needed to assimilate. I didn't want people to think I was the weirdo. I was very insecure as a child. I just wanted to be as normal as possible. And so I tucked a lot of this away. And then as I grew older, I think the agnostic is kind of where I went into. I studied other religions, and I was getting really into like the ideas in Buddhism and Hinduism in like high school. I didn't get really deep into it, but that's when I really opened my mind of like, well, there's no way that all these people on the planet are wrong. Like, there's too much of the same theme going across.
Yeah.
And then I just got really career focused for a while, and really work focused and school focused, that I kind of just ignored that part of me completely until just before the pandemic. So pretty new into this journey for me, but I just realized everything I was doing just didn't feel right anymore. And not that it was wrong, because I did have a really cool job, and I had a really beautiful life I'd created. But there was the part that was missing just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was to a point that basically my ancestors were like, bitch slap me, like, you have to pay attention now. Like, this is your time. I had just had my daughter. And so I thought it was a lot of postpartum depression, which sure, it probably was. But now I understand it was so much deeper than that. It was acknowledging my soul. It was acknowledging my desires and who I was, and starting to break down that programming. And you, as helped me along the way, because you already had started this journey with your own story, and you're about a year into it at that point, where I was like, Janet, I need help. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who I am. And so I just kind of went all in, secretly for a long time, because I was like, I don't want people, again, that fear I had as a child, stepping into it now. And it took me about a year to two to like really come out of the spiritual closet. And here we are now launching a podcast. Like, there's no more hiding at this point.
No,
we're owning it all. So
I love that. That's so funny. I'll get into mine in just a second about where it came and how it stemmed. But I had a session with my mentor yesterday. And because I just told you, new beginnings, you're constantly discovering new depths, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in this place of trying to make this next little jump of depth into the self, of being okay with who I am.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot more weirder stuff in there that I'm like, what is that? But my mentor said something funny that relates to what you said. She's like, the problem is you're sitting here trying to hide and you're doing a real shitty job of hiding.
Yeah. I have the same mentor as Janet, so I can hear her in my head as Janet saying that.
I was just like,
so good.
She's talking about me. This is so true.
Yeah, because she would say the same thing. You can't hide. When you get to a point, it gets to a point, and maybe some of y'all out there who are listening can understand. It just gets to a point that like you just want to jump out of your skin. Like you can't hide a part of you anymore.
Yeah, you can't hide it, and you can't be something you're not.
Yeah.
I think that there's levels of inauthenticity that we all go through, and I'm still going through a version of it right now, but it's breaking those layers down that help you get deeper. And for me, I mean, and this ties into my story, friends. So this is one of the greatest pieces of my curriculum is, I grew up in a home that had a lot of chaos, and like something that Malena and I have in common is we grew up in a home of immigrants. So imagine like you come to a new country and there's a lot more unknown and not the same support systems that you had with your family and so on and so forth. So it can be chaotic for this type of household. And that being the case, also I grew up in Catholic settings, but there were a couple of times where I'd be removed from my Catholic what do you call it? Catechism classroom? Because you asked the wrong question.
Oh yes, I asked a lot of the wrong questions.
Wait, why can't a man love a man? I had a gay uncle. Okay. So like for me, I was like, it's whatever. It's like, makes so much sense to me. It's just love. Everyone.
And that's what it would get so confusing as a child. Yeah, totally.
Sure.
I don't understand.
And you're like, out. So I had the best time out there on that bench. You hear me? No problems out there. I was with God for real out there. I was with the universe. I was alone and having a lovely time looking at the grain of wood on the bench, and it was perfect. But ultimately, friends, I would grow up and live the life that we're conditioned and told that is the path towards happiness, right? You're going to go to school. You're going to get this degree. You're going to get multiple degrees if you can. You're going to get married. And then after you get married, you're going to have your children. And after you have your children, you're going to eventually start discovering yourself and so on and so forth. And these things lead to one another. And all it kept leading to for me was illness. I just kept getting sicker, and I had, alopecia and IBS and polycystic ovaries and severe dermatitis and COPD, and I could keep going and going and going.
I mean, you had all the way to the end there, you were having like seizures.
I was having seizures. So I got diagnosed with epilepsy, but I thought it was weird. I'm like, why would I get diagnosed with epilepsy at, what was I, 35 years old? And so long story short, it took a few things for me to realize, like I had this company and it grew like exponentially in like a year. I thought like I 10 times the revenue and everything was wild. And I thought, this is crazy. This is like, how do you keep up with this and keep up with your family? And I hadn't seen my kids very often for a few years, and I was just melting. I was in a marriage where we would show up for each other in support, but there wasn't connection. And so it took basically, two things happened. One, I had a set of staff at one of my companies, at that company at the time, and they brought me into a room. They're like, well, we think there's something more to you. But I had grown up in a household that had busy parents, so I felt a little neglected. As I grew up with my friendships, I also was in my friendship in silence frequently. I didn't share everything that was on my mind or going on in my heart. And then as it came further to that, when I became a classroom teacher, because I was a classroom teacher in the public education system, you'll hear me talk about that a lot probably in the future. But I didn't realize that I was being able to perform or do the things that I was doing differently than some of my peers, because I was teaching alone in a classroom. So ultimately, friends, what I didn't realize is I was a psychic. I didn't realize that I was intuitive. I didn't realize that I was tapped into more, that I could see more, read more.
Feel energy.
Yeah, feel energy, meet a child. And by the way, all of us can do this to varying degrees.
Yes.
That's the first thing I think Malena and I would both love for y'all to know. Everyone can do this. And so before you knew it, I had a betrayal in a marriage, and that was enough to reemerge a lot of my childhood wounds that I had from my own parents' divorce, that it just unveiled and unleashed a new paradigm and a depth of pain so profound, so deep. I had a friend of mine, Tracy, who was like pulling me off of the floor practically on our walks to school, bringing the kids in the morning because the pain was so big. But thanks to that pain being so big, it really helped me connect with another version of myself. And one day I was in my living room and I heard like Jumanji drums happening on my coffee table. I was like, what is going on? I got it on tape. It was on tape, on video. We don't do tape anymore.
We just aged ourselves a little bit.
Oops. And so I was like floored of the things that were happening. There were orbs and stuff in my life. And then I met my mentor who like totally took these paradigms to a new reality. And so then I suddenly miraculously healed from like a broken hip that had been mishealed for 20 years. And little by little, all of my ailments either calmed or healed completely. And you can't deny these new truths and new perspectives and miracles that you see in every new beginning. You just can't. They make you a new version of yourself. They make you the more authentic and self-actualized version of yourself. And it's 100%. Really cool.
That's so beautifully said. Something that was coming through when you were sharing that story was as we start going in to the spiritual side of ourselves, the side that may have been ignored, abandoned, or rejected. As we start stepping into that, the first thing that I feel like I really had to understand is to not have judgment of all the things that had gotten me there. Like you said, you needed the sickness. You know, we needed the traumas and we needed the difficulty to show us the way. So in my 20s, when I became very career focused and education focused, and because I've switched my career now quite a few times, none of it's lost. Like I just keep building and building and building on those skills. Like whether it was like business management, I was a therapist for a little bit. I've worked in small companies, small businesses. I came from small bit, like it all, like as I start looking and doing an inventory of what got me here, it's all beautiful. It all served purpose.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like mind blowing. And same thing with your story. So if you're listening to this now, like look at the pattern of your life and just see how everything has served you. And that's one of the challenges, is to look at it without judgment, even especially right now, if you're out there and you're hurting, because when you're hurting, it's really hard to be optimistic, because that's one myth of spirituality. I will say that spiritual people are always happy. Spiritual people, it's like some hard work. It's definitely not for the weak. You know, it's transformation does take a lot of self-responsibility and healing and work, but to really look at everything you've done up to this point in your life without judgment is like huge, I think.
Yeah. And then in addition to that, friends, it doesn't mean that like Malena and I ever function with no judgment.
Yeah.
The judgment is actually what is the indicator. It's kind of like the road sign that starts to show you which way to look. Which, to be quite honest, for those of you who are looking at us on video and those of you who are not, like the way you're going to look is this way. You're going to look inward. It's really the entire universe exists as a big ass mirror to show you what's really going on within you.
Yeah.
And where you have judgments of self within you.
Yes.
So the premise of this platform, what our intention is to hold this space for each other, for ourselves, for you guys, to kind of show you ways, methods, tools, build access, connect you with individuals who can help support this for you in your life. You'll watch us sometimes do the work live on here, but you'll also watch us come here with stories of things that we just learned recently in our lives and how they integrate. So the one thing that I think that, and I know, Malena, you agree, a lot of spiritual teachers, gurus, there's so many different avenues out there for us to get the information, but the true teacher, the true embodied human is learning to integrate that information into their own life so that when they come to you, and art's our goal, that's what we work towards and strive towards, is when we come to you, we have worked towards embodying these lessons. We have worked towards embodying this love so that we can share it with you, because otherwise they're just words.
Yeah. And that's what I did for so long. I think when I was looking for help or clarity or understanding. I read a lot. I read a lot of books, and I would get overwhelmed. I'm like, well, I can't do all of these things that this one person's saying. And then I'd go to the next book, and I like, I can't do all of this either, And now I realize, just take what does resonate and forget the rest, which is such a more beautiful, open way I've been seeing people teach now or show. Is you have to create your own medicine. You have to create your own way of what works for you. The way I meditate isn't necessarily how Janet would meditate. Some people, we'll probably have a whole episode probably on meditation and all of the troubles that comes with that too. But with all of these things, we're here to just bring it down to the earth, bring it down to realness. Like me and Janet are both moms. We both have family. We both get very business. We both have our own independent businesses that we're running. But how do you, like she's saying, integrate it? So where it's how you are and how you show up in the world when you're at the grocery store, when you're at the gas pump, when you're talking with your kids, when you're interacting with a new friend or an old friend, it becomes so woven into the fabric of just like how you are. And that's the cool thing that I feel like spirituality is now showing us. You don't have to change everything about you and become this person, which I think is like the old way that a lot of it was taught. I think now it's just more open and grounded. And how do you bring it into your life?
Yeah, I agree. I think the old way did have a lot of, and I think it still does, truthfully, like
it does.
A lot of stereotypes or perspectives of how it should be lived. And, what does it look like for me to be in my Zen space? And what does it look like for me to actually like only eat clean foods? And there's so much more to all of it. And I know, like you said, we're going to have episodes that talk about all of these things and really get the integrative components of it. But a lot of us do seek spiritual work from trauma, from wounds, from places of
heartache.
Discomfort. Yeah. And so ultimately it can become its own coping mechanism. So like she was saying, we're really going for practical, grounded ways to show that we can live this way without having to uproot, change, reshift, wardrobe change. There's so many things that tie to this, right? That can just really honor our human experience.
Yeah.
That's
the
human
great
experience.
Yeah. And then we talk about the heart a lot, and that's, our whole title with Heartful Beings. Like, what is the heartful being? And this was an area that I struggled with, was really getting into the heart, because my heart had gone through so much. I had closed it off for protection. I had become more rational and practical with ignoring parts of the heart too. So through this work, I realized that it took a lot of courage for me and bravery to actually open the heart as opposed to keeping it closed. Like, that was the harder part. And then it's been just, everything is more beautiful. I want to say, like, everything is more has more ease to it. And it's about the balance though, too. It's like, it's not all just hard and frou-frou, but it's really is opening it up to the reality and to like your truth.
So ultimately, friends, I feel like when we're talking about the heart, right? So the heart is this entirely magnetic, magical being that is the ultimate commander in your life. And so a lot of times when we are finding ourselves suffering in pain, in, disarray, in disillusion, in panic, in fear, we'll just call all of those concepts fear. It's because we're not leading from the heart. It's because we're leading from the brain. And when we have more heart-brain coherence, or when we're actually asking ourselves, okay, is this really what I believe? Like, in my heart's knowing, is this what I really believe? Or is this what I've been told?
100%.
Yeah. There's a huge discovery, like an unveiling of information about you, that you start to realize, wait a minute, that doesn't resonate. So what is the truth about this scenario? Or what is my truth? Because you could sit here and try to live someone else's truth, or someone else's book, or someone else's perspective, or someone else's rule, or someone else's law, or we could keep going. But when you're not living yours, that is when you're not being honored. And that is when you are the one not honoring yourself. And that is when you start to get into more trouble, as our mentor says. You get yourself into trouble because you know just enough that something feels off, something doesn't resonate, but you won't give yourself that pleasure or that ownership or that boundary or whatever it is that's
Mhm.
showing up in your heart that's needed, and will just follow through with what societal norms say or cultural norms say or parental norms say we should
Mhm.
or should not be, should or should not think, should
Yeah.
or should not do. But the heart
Mhm.
has infinite knowing, it has infinite knowledge,
Yeah.
and it has infinite depth.
Yeah.
So being a heartful being, what we're about is learning to connect more with that heart. I'll be real transparent. I feel that Malena has done so much work in the heartful space, and I'm just now starting to unveil it a lot more.
Mhm.
And so it's like same thing, you know, and there's no judgment on where she is versus where I am. So you're going to watch me probably here, you know, open my heart more,
Mhm.
have my breakthroughs here. What does it look like for me to be challenged or have a sudden realization that does bring me to tears
Mhm.
or joy, whichever,
Mhm.
whichever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the heart, my friends, the heartful being, that's really what we are. It's just that the mind comes in and with judgments, beliefs of right and wrong, perspectives, opinions, it really starts to get more convoluted. And then we get more polarized. And then
Right.
that's where we kind of separate ourselves from ourselves.
Yeah. And another level that came through when you were talking of the heart, like the heart is where the soul, I believe, lives. It's where our intuition really comes from. So we have to have also this balance, because if we went around only leading with our hearts all the time, we could also get into maybe some trouble. And if you only lead with your mind, you could also get yourself in some trouble. But it's really a finding this balance approach to everything that we even talk about here. That has been also something that has really hit home for me recently, is balance. We always hear like, oh, you know, having balance between work and home life and how the struggles of that is for people. We're going just even deeper, not just with like the external, but just like how we show up in the world, whether you're at work or at home, finding that balance with the
Yep.
heart, having that balance with the mind, because we have both. We were created with both. So why
Yeah.
wouldn't we use both,
Yep.
you know? And
Yeah. Both are necessary. And like
yeah.
the mind can actually command what the heart does
Yeah.
and vice versa. So
Mhm.
so yeah, the balance is huge, my friend. Thank you so much for saying that. Cause
Mhm.
by the way, it's needed. And then I want to almost support that with one more thing. And the mind's going to come up here
Yeah.
a lot. Because one thing that we've been learning to do is to change our minds. And it can be a battle. It can be
Yes.
traumatic. It can come with a lot of side effects. It can come with your heart's knowing, and now your mind's trying to jump on board. And
Mhm.
the mind is one powerful motherfucker, my friends. Okay.
Yeah.
And we are here to share about our experiences with how we're starting to really tap into that power as empowered mamas, learning to really walk this life of
Yeah.
the balance. Because that's the thing, friends. I think even in spiritual circles, or platforms, you'll see a lot of people are like, the whole point of being here is to enlighten, or the whole point of being here is to, what would you call it? Like elevate and do this and, you know,
Transcend is another big
transcend.
word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, sure, absolutely. That's a part of it.
Yeah.
But then it kind of negates the beautiful creation of humanity. It
Yes.
right? It kind of
Yes.
negates the fact that, but we also came here to live as humans and live within the parameters of Earth, live
Yeah.
within gravity, right? Live within the dichotomy of night versus dark,
This body.
day. Yeah, the body.
Why do we even have a body if, you know, like it all serves purpose, right? So if we go
Yeah.
back with that other premise of everything that we've done on your journey, all serves purpose and all has a reason for it to have happened, for your own growth. Same thing on why we're even here in this body with a heart and a mind. It's all part of this like holistic approach now that I think spirituality is really getting into, which I think is super exciting, because it's not limiting or trying to ignore or spiritually avoid the parts that are hard, or
Yeah.
the parts that aren't happy,
Mhm.
or the parts that we've decided for one reason or another, you know, isn't as important. And I think now looking at our whole energy body, nutrition, physical, you know, how you're sleeping. I can go on and on with all the things that you want to look at yourself holistically and see. But the part that really like blew my mind is when I realized I didn't know how to take care of my energy body, because we were never taught. So when I really learned how to take care of the energetic body, which we'll also totally get into in further future episodes, game changer, like such a game changer. Like I quit having to take so many Tylenols and ibuprofens for body aches and pains. It was the little things were massive change, miracles in a way, like you had crazy physical, I mean, you're a walking miracle, Janet. Like I'm sure your doctors are like, whoa, she was so sick, basically dying, and now you're fine. Like, how is that? And you were fine within 6 to 7 months.
Yeah.
Fast. It was very fast. And I was witness to that. It's wild, but from my story, like even those small victories, as I'm bringing that perspective in for some of you guys, like it all counts. It's all beautiful. It's all miraculous. It's all possible when you have your heart and your mind creating, manifesting change.
Yeah.
Oh my God. We could talk forever.
We really could. We really could, because, then that topic leads us to resistance, and then resistance leads us to like blockages, and then blockages leads us to trauma, and trauma leads us to curriculum. And so like,
and we're going to get down to all of it. We're going to get down with all of it. But what I really wanted, like, I think our first episode is going back to these new beginnings, like, Janet and I saying yes to even coming out more with this podcast and with like making our business grow even more had our own challenges and our own transformational experiences, you know?
Yeah. And, I almost like to end with this. I wonder if you're open to ending this way with me. Like, what have your continuous new beginnings led? Like, how have they shown up in your life? What is the evidence of it? Because like, I'm human too, and I love evidence, guys.
Yes. My first, when you guys are on the cusp, this is from my personal experience. When I'm on the cusp of doing something big that is going to be a game changer, I'm terrified. I want to go back into my hole. I want to pretend like I never had the thought. And it's like, I don't want to necessarily do it, but then you just know that it has to be done. And so once I kind of process some of that fear and that anxiety and like the, oh shit moment, I ask for help now, because now I know how to ask for help. Big thing that I never knew how to do in the past, really. Asking for help, and not just from people in my life and actual human beings, but my spirit team and my ancestors, and like asking for the encouragement, the love, the support to go through and take a step through the door. Because some of the biggest moments that have been profoundly miraculous for me were the ones that I was the most terrified every time. So if you're scared about doing something and you also know in your heart it's something you need to do, you'll know when it's time, but acknowledge that fear as like, oh, okay, this is my mind and part of me and old programs trying to keep me safe from possibly failing. Right. That's a big one for me, or being seen as wrong or whatever your paradigm may be. And so what?
Yeah.
Like, so what?
Yeah. And the evidence of doing this work, guys, like, because other thing is, having been Malena's witness, like I've watched her literally walk away from old ways of being, right? I've literally watched her like heal relationships, improve her, what I'll call like, what would you say? Like you're like a calm. There's a calm and an ease.
Oh my God. I have it's odd. Like
there used to be severe anxiety.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that's another thing. When you've made the change, it's going to feel weird. You're going to be like
foreign.
It's totally foreign. Like, I don't know how to not live with a certain level of anxiety. And I still get anxiety. Okay. It's not like I'm not living anxiety free, but I always had a constant threshold. My threshold was pretty high to like function with functional anxiety. Right. But, it's just, you'll feel foreign.
Yeah.
So I want to turn these questions to you, Janet. How do you know that you're about to make a change, or what are what's the evidence that will show up for you of
for
something?
Me, yeah. And this is kind of just like a brace yourself, right?
Yeah.
For me, the evidence is, when I declare that I want to change something, or I can feel it coming, usually the evidence in the reality, like in my real life, is things get bumpier.
Mm-hmm.
And they get bumpier on purpose, because it means, okay, Janet, it is officially time.
Yeah.
God, source, creator, energies, angels, everyone comes together and like, it's time now. It's time to address this. And the longer you delay and avoid, because okay, well, guys, you're going to hear me talk about delay avoidance a lot. Okay. It's a thing.
We've been really good at it our whole lives.
No judgment. I'm just kind of learning. It's a thing I do sometimes. Yeah. So what ends up happening is that the curriculum or the obstacles or the contrast or the pain or the relationship or whatever, it starts to get really hectic and bumpy because it's time to fucking do something about it. By the way, I swear like a sailor, if you guys have not been able to tell, it's one of my favorite things about myself.
Yeah. And it just happens. So it just happens with us.
Yeah, it just comes out. Okay. Yes, I'm a school teacher, but the dichotomy can exist. I can be a school teacher and I can have a potty mouth. Okay.
Yeah.
All is good.
Authentic living.
Yeah. I don't do it with the kids out of respect for their parents and blah, 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 blah. But maybe we'll live in a society that's different one day. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Regardless, here's the thing. It's fascinating because it gets bumpier. But then once I do that work and once I like rip off the Band-Aid and put on a cast that's more uncomfortable and learn to walk this new way and embody it, because you have no other option but to do so.
Yeah.
Because the pain will get that difficult or the obstacle or the whatever. You have to navigate it. That's what we're here to do. And we're capacitated to do that. We can navigate things. The evidence of it is things like overcoming illnesses, right? Or it's like, holy cow, I just like multiplied my income again. Or it might even be something like, wow, I noticed that this person that used to be a really big nuisance or difficult human in my life is suddenly behaving very differently.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with them or any work that they've done. It has everything to do with what I have done. So that's just kind of something we're sharing to let you know, input or know what you can also expect. If you're new, if this is a new beginning for you, if you're sitting here like, oh, what's this Heartful Beings podcast? Let's check it out. This is for anyone who's new to this path. It's anyone who's already on this path. I'll be honest with you. The way Malena and I view it is that everyone's on the path. I care not what your belief is. We're all here collectively together doing this work together to expand as souls, to expand as a collective race, to expand as a collective being, like at a universal scale. We're all here together doing it.
That's great. Yeah. So we're going to end today with this first episode on new beginnings, how we started, kind of the evidence that you may be seeing in your life of how, if you're in a new beginning or you just feel this like inner desire, like something has to change or something is different or something's gnawing at you, like, you know, you just got to do this thing and you can't let it go for whatever reason. But like Janet just so beautifully said, every single one of us are on a path. So whether or not you even decide that you are a spiritual person or not doesn't even matter to us. But we will talk a lot about like spiritual principles and just for the sake of like the theme kind of will be on theme with those things, but it's really just being an authentic human being. And that's what I think at the end of the day, our heartful being is being authentic, like coming from the heart, not ignoring the heart anymore, as so many of us have been trained to do, you know, or shown to do. And just not had the opportunity to have a space to talk about these things in a more practical and grounded way. So super stoked to be on this journey with you guys.
Oh, same here. And again, I am Janet Uribe.
And I'm Malena Rodriguez.
And we love you guys. And we so look forward to playing again.
Yes, that was fun. Y'all have a great day. If you liked what you heard today and want to see more about our offerings and gifts, please join our email list at heartfulbeings.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Heartful Beings.
Please note that all of our perspectives and views of the following content are ours and aren't necessarily a substitute to our holistic views and approaches to healing. Both of us believe in the numerous support tools available to all, which include and are not limited to therapy, mental health treatment, medical prescription, and other types of traditional or alternative healthcare.